Witness the great ish of N McBunda ish. Witness the great ish of N McBunda ish.
I always say that I think every black person needs therapy. Every single black person needs therapy. We have been through too much to not have post-traumatic post-traumatic stress disorder. Whether you were alive during the times where black people were most at a disadvantage, or whether you're alive now, that stuff still touches you and that stuff still follows you around. And that is why, in my perspective, we deal with so many issues like brutality against females, brutality against children, not caring about our elderly people, incredible addiction to substances. It's because it's hard to face yourself. It's hard to look at the painful stuff because you have to face it and you have to actually acknowledge how painful it is, and that in itself is not fun.
Ave Abushani, oh hey. Yeah, yo, another yellow, yo. We got the issues. You're gonna wash your eyes, yo. You're gonna wash your eyes. I tell you, yo. Let's give it the applause. Yeah, yo, guys. Obviously, she's gonna introduce herself, man. I just wanna say that before I introduce her, like, yo, guys, this is the one of the biggest pioneer in the making. Like, I tell y'all, some orchestral vibes I see in the future. I tell y'all, guys, but she's gonna introduce herself because I don't wanna pop. And most of y'all know her. We played with her. We're in the same band. Do the issues.
Hello, everybody. I go by the name of Leelo Music, but you can call me Lerato. I am a musician, I'm a singer, I'm a writer, and an incredible consumer of music. And music is a part of my life. Music is part of my entire journey. And I have to date released one album. It's called Journey. As I said, music is a part of my entire journey. And so my first album is about that journey, is about how music influenced my life and how music has been the heartbeat of each and everything that I've gone through in life.
Yeah. And we have the people behind the cams.
Yeah, introduce yourself, people. They are calling.
Ninkohli namanga nibuza ngami kuma comments. Ngiyazala guys. Hi, it's Nelejah. It's Nelejah, guys. Ningazi. And this voice of God with me in here. We're at the back together. We're doing the things at the back together, watching the people up front. You're doing the things, yeah. But yeah, I can't wait to divulge into this interview. I'm for one interested.
Very interested.
Deeply.
Very interested because we have an interesting lady here.
Yo.
I feel like she has a lot to offer to the world, to us, the world. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to over to you, Bunda.
Yo, Leelo. Like, I'm so honored, guys. Like, I'm so touched. I'm so humbled right now. Like, yo, she's dope, guys. Like, yo, like, guys, I'm like, whoo. You know when you want a picture when you say celeb? That's me right now. That's me right now. You might not see it, but yo, man, I respect you from 100%. Yo, like, yo, that's every time when you call me for. Yo, by the way, guys, I'm a pianist. I'm her pianist. You get me? So like, whenever you call me, every time, look, I jump. I don't care. I would even lie to my family just to make it by your issues. Like, it's true.
Secrets are coming out.
Hey, don't kill me.
I'm a file.
So yo, please tell us, really, and because mostly I want you to like get in Gakulu with the album that, because you spoke about your album really, the kind of what it, because I know winter, summer, but you're gonna do everything and tell us the whole story of that.
Okay. So I'll start with this. I've been singing my whole life. I don't remember when I started singing. It's not something that, I'm like, oh, when I was 8. But my dad influenced my music tastes a lot growing up. We used to go on road trips, and on those road trips we'd always listen to a lot of music. There's always a lot of jazz, a lot of Sibongile Khumalo, Gloria Bossman, a lot of really awesome South African music talent. And I think I enjoyed singing with them, and they made me want to sing. So I grew up like that. I went into music school when I was 8 for the first time. So I was like trained a little bit in music theory then, and did a few did a lot of vocal training at that age, but we stopped like halfway through. Sometimes like when you're growing up, things don't always become consistent or come out the way you want. And but I grew up with a lot of people telling me not to go into music, ironically.
Why was that?
I suppose it's a field of expertise that people are afraid of because of everything that can go wrong, and that is a true reality in the music industry, in the entertainment industry, is that especially when you're a woman, it takes a lot to empower yourself. Otherwise, you're vulnerable amongst a lot of things that are controlled by a lot of men, and it's not an industry where ethics have always been regulated well. So a lot of negative things happen behind the scenes, and young people get exploited, and young people get pushed into things, a lot of situations that involve substance abuse, that just involve outrageousness and no level of care for the person. You look at a lot of people's stories like Amy Winehouse. You look at people, a lot of the people that we grew up listening to. I don't want to name drop and offend people, but we all know that that's present in the industry that we're in. So I understand why people want to shelter and protect their children from that. However, my stance on it, especially based on the way that I grew up, is that, if you encourage it and if you teach your children from an early age what it means to be a part of this industry, and if you make them understand that knowledge is power in this industry more than any other industry in this one, you need to know your stuff. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know what you want. You need to know everything about the business that you are getting yourself into. Because, the reason I went to school also was because I realized that school can hold me back for 3 years, but my own mistakes and my own ignorance could hold me back for 10 years plus. And, the exchange is so much better in that way. You leave school, you know what you want, you have a better understanding of what you are getting yourself into. Sure, there's other ways to learn this stuff, but I think the most non-biased and the one that's most aimed at empowering professionals in this industry is the school way, and I found that outside of education, people are not very willing to share their knowledge with you. People don't want to teach you how to produce for yourself. People don't want to teach you how to write. People don't want to explain their process of writing. Especially when you're a girl and when you're someone that's very dominant and you know what you want and you actually ask those questions, you begin to see that this has nothing to do with knowledge. This is just people that are not interested in sharing. And that's just that. So that was where I found the information that I needed and where I learned what I needed to learn in order for my talent to be something that can empower me and take me further in life.
Something natural versus something you needed to, adapt to learn.
I flunked out of varsity a few times, guys, doing things that I really was not invested in. Essentially, they weren't, and I think I'm a person that can't ignore myself. So even when I went into those varsity endeavors, I kept running into people that were like, why aren't you in the arts? What are you doing here? What's going on? And so your own spirit echoes back at you
Like,
wherever
yo,
you go.
what you
You're
doing?
not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
You know, it's
So you end up having to ignore people so that you can honor yourself and you can honor where you are supposed to be in life.
so you can be
And
happy and at peace.
whatever it is that you need, yes.
Yeah, you spoke about exploiting and everything. What do you think? Do you think, I don't want to mention names, but do you think record labels make sense in a business way? It makes sense in a business way. And what's your opinion in record labels exploiting those people, young people, like you said?
So this is the thing about a contract, right? A contract is supposed to serve two people. Whether you're getting into that contract with a major record label or a mini major or whatever, you still need to understand that it's an exchange of trade, right? Two people should be held accountable. A lot of people go into this industry incredibly ignorant and just seeing the end game and not understanding what you need to do to get to that end game. If somebody is asking you to sign a contract when you're about to get on stage and perform, leave. You shouldn't be signing a contract under those circumstances.
No way.
If you are about to walk into a club and perform at a gig that someone told you, oh no, I got you this gig, it's just to see what you're made of, and then they hand you a piece of paper as you're about to go and perform, refuse and leave. I understand that a lot of musicians are not in a position where they feel like they can say no to opportunities because we all have bills to pay, we all have people to take care of. But you need to understand that you might make a decision that enslaves you essentially for the next 10 years of your life without understanding it. So understand formal negotiations. You don't give somebody a contract and expect them to sign them the next day. Something's wrong if someone is telling you sign this contract by tomorrow. You need an attorney. You need somebody who is an expert at entertainment law that can advise you. Even a general attorney is better than nothing. They can advise you on which clauses you should be worried about, which clauses you should not be worried about, and they should be there to negotiate for you. You should never be negotiating without an attorney present. And when you go outside of those boundaries, when it comes to business operations, that's when you open yourself up to exploitation. You need to understand that there's a way of doing things when it comes to business. And you need to understand that essentially what you are is a business. You are trying to profit off of your talent. You are trying to make money off of something that you are making that's authentic. That is the exact same thing as a farmer farming and selling his fruits at the store. So you should be getting remunerated for your work. And that does also depend on your how advanced you are and all of those things. So you need to understand what you bring to the table, and you need to understand what the so-called record label is bringing to the table for you. And those things need to serve both you and the record label. And you've got to be able to be accountable. That's another thing. I think there's a lot of musicians that just want to get their way all the time and don't understand that it's a give and take, and it is going to be a push and pull. We're not always going to get exactly what we want, but it's important to know what you want so that you can know when you are getting something that is close to it, something that is equally acceptable, and just have an open mind, but learn about your industry, guys. Go to school. If you can go to school, go to school. If you can go to school to study business, it's better than not knowing anything about business. If you can go to school to study law, it's fine. All of those things can still help you in your music career, and getting a degree in something else is not the be all and the end all of your life. Essentially, I think I used to feel like, oh my God, like I don't want this degree thing so much. I just want to get into the industry. But it is something that can empower you. And there are other avenues to get that information and that knowledge. But as long as you pursue it, that's the most important thing, the pursuit of that knowledge, the pursuit of that training. And I think we'd have a whole lot less problems in our industry if there were a lot more accessible mentors in this industry as well, because there are a lot of people that have been through this stuff for ages and years, and we don't really know their stories, or if we do know them, we know them from other people. We don't know them directly from the source. So you can talk all you want about Oliver Mtukudzi, but he didn't come and tell us that these are the challenges that I faced in the music industry, so that we as Black children can now be empowered and understand that okay, I need to look out for that, or at least I need to learn more about that. So yeah, knowledge is power.
It's a mentality of saying, I was just bonel, go through these things. You have to go through these things so that you get where I am. Do you think that's wrong? By them saying that, is that wrong with that mentality?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm saying all of these things is because these are the lessons I've learned. I'm not like talking, if you'll excuse me, I'm not talking about out my ass, I'm not talking about stuff I haven't experienced.
Exactly. So she's talking from experience.
I'm talking about things that actually matter more, we can we can all talk about the fancy stuff in music and shooting music videos and all of that stuff, but even that involves so much work, so much technicality. But if you're on the outside of it, you think that people just get into a room, and there's just cameras around, and we just go edit that footage and we're cool. And that's not how it works. Even the guys that work in their own home studios, they're working with a lot of technical knowledge and a lot of practice and a lot of experience. So just because I made a song in my studio at home doesn't necessarily mean that it was easy to make that song. So people take the arts for granted a lot. People think that because it's a talent and it comes naturally, you're not trying. And I have been trained in the arts throughout my life, especially in high school. I did drama in high school, I did visual arts in high school. And yes, and I tell people all the time, I was taught how to draw. I didn't just wake up one day and know how to draw all the different perspectives that you get from a person's face or a tree or whatever. You actually have to learn how to look at a thing so that you can reproduce that with your hand. So people will look at art and think, oh, this person is so talented, but not understand the work that the person had to put in for them to consume that talent, and it's the same with musicians. I see even how people will be disrespectful to somebody like Beyonce. Oh, Beyonce doesn't write her own music. Just because Beyonce doesn't write on her own doesn't mean she doesn't write her own music. Doesn't mean she's not a producer. Doesn't mean she hasn't been a producer for the last 30 years. However, people like that don't have to walk around spewing out their accolades because their work speaks for themselves. We can all respect Eminem, but we can't respect Nicki Minaj for whatever reason. It's okay to do things like compare female musicians and say, oh, Cardi B's better than Nicki Minaj, and all of that stuff goes with the level of disregard there is for how hard people in this industry work. So I kind of forgot what your initial question was, but that perspective, essentially that perspective of, no, I went through it, you'll go through it too, I think is a response to the lack of respect that a lot of musicians feel throughout their careers. And I also think that some musicians have really big egos, so they're not, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not an ego thing, maybe it's a fear thing, maybe it's a thing of being afraid that someone else will surpass you if you give them that knowledge. But we're all gonna get surpassed by someone at some point. Like, guys, I love Beyonce. I think Beyonce is the most amazing woman in the world. My siblings don't care about Beyonce for the most part. They don't know her like I do. They did not grow up with her at her peak like I did. For them, Ariana Grande is
Is
their
that crazy?
idea of Beyonce
Taylor
or
Swift.
whoever else.
Yeah.
Well, we black.
Yeah, we
I
don't-
don't know
yeah,
about Taylor
I don't
Swift,
know.
but I'm kidding. I love 20. What is that album? The 20, is it 23 or 24?
asked
Guys,
me at
please cut
Taylor
this out.
Swift, like-
But I like Taylor Swift as well, guys. It's not a thing.
It's not a
But
thing.
anyway, yeah, my point
Oh,
is
it's
just that everybody gets surpassed. So I think we also need to stop being afraid of that. And I do a lot of researching for my own spirit. And the thing that I hear a lot of proficient writers speak about is just write about it, whether you're stealing from somebody or not. It's okay, nobody's really original, so just say whatever it is you want to say, however it is you need to say it, and that is what will be unique because it's coming from you. You know,
you talk about the challenges in the industry. You know, people always look at the technical part of it, the business side of it. But I feel like as artists, like we're the most anxious. Like as artists, I feel like I've never known an artist that doesn't suffer from anxiety or some sort of depression, because I'm an anxious person. Like I have anxiety and need of mental health. So it's like I've met poets, and it doesn't matter. It's not just poets, it's singers. It's not just singers, it's writers. It's not just writers, painters, and they're all anxious, and they take it out and they execute it in their, in their artistry and whatever they're doing. So is that one of the challenges that you face? That you have that one thing that, yeah, I'm an artist, but there is that challenge that isn't business related. That isn't because, people are trying to stiff me of my light or my platform to be me. It's just me being against me. Like, yo, as much as you battle the outside, you have a war in you too.
So I've been in therapy for the past 3 or 4 years, basically, right? Mental health is an incredibly important thing. And the thing you were talking about how artists can sometimes have very volatile emotions and they'll take it out in their artworks and all of those things. The sad thing is that sometimes that volatility comes out in their own personal lives, which then ends up inhibiting them from feeling fulfilled in their careers and even in their personal lives. So we can have a whole session about mental health because that's how important it is. I think that especially as Black people, we're sometimes at a disadvantage because we were not raised with the perspective of therapy and mental health being an important thing, but rather being a thing that self-indulgent and spoiled people worry about. If you're anxious, I got a tummy ache, I think I'm just a bit anxious, just go to the bathroom, you'll be fine. And I think that's because things were so horrible for our people, let's say 30 years ago, that they had no choice but to overlook their mental health because it was just survival, essentially. You can't honor your spirits in a space where you are not allowed to be more. You are not allowed to be more of a professional. You are not allowed to know certain things, So I always say that I think every Black person needs therapy. Every single Black person needs therapy. We have been through too much to not have post-traumatic distress, post-traumatic stress disorder. Whether you were alive during the times where Black people were most at a disadvantage, or whether you're alive now, that stuff still touches you and that stuff still follows you around. And that is why, in my perspective, we deal with so many issues like brutality against females, brutality against children, not caring about our elderly people, incredible addiction to substances. It's because it's hard to face yourself. It's hard to look at the painful stuff because you have to face it and you have to actually acknowledge how painful it is. And that in itself is not fun and it's not great. And it's really difficult to even look at yourself and say, you know what, I'm wrong here and here and here. This is my fault. I am accountable for these things. So it's important. It's important. I don't understand why counseling is not something that's more freely available and it would be nice to give people avenues at which they could get that counseling, because I understand that therapy can also be really expensive for the most part, and it's not easy to find facilities where you can be comfortable and speak to people. But it doesn't have to be professional therapy. You can always speak to a friend that you trust, or an elderly person that you trust and that cares about you and that has your best interests at heart. But you have to honor your emotions. You have to allow yourself to feel them. You don't have to react to them, but you have to allow yourself to feel them, and you have to acknowledge that they're there. Otherwise, they'll just follow you around and they don't go away, and then they end up inhibiting you from being able to enjoy other good things in your life. So that's basically the condensed version for me. There's a lot of aspects to mental health as well. There's a lot of things that we learn growing up that affect the way that we think as grown-ups, and you also have to be able to look back at those things and rewire yourself and relearn better ways, better behaviors to take you further. I was even saying earlier that I know that I'm a very direct person, but I sometimes have an issue with the way that I speak to people. So I'm trying to work on that. It's not easy. It's not easy for me to admit that I have this flaw. And I'm pretty sure there are people out there that I have not been very nice to, that are like, yes, bitch. Yes. Yes. And I can only apologize and try to be a better person. But it takes a lot of introspection. You have to literally look at the man in the mirror. It's not a cliche because it's not true. Most cliches are actually true. So yeah, it's all part of building yourself. If you have a problem with your heart, you go see a heart doctor. If you have a problem with your mind, you need to go see someone that can help you with your mind. It's as simple as that.
So I wanted to, because I'm kind of putting also back, but yeah.
No, it's okay.
On the hence we were speaking about the label part, like the
Record labels.
Record labels. Sometimes I would understand really, like some record labels, they rip people off and thingy, and you mentioned it, sometimes it's the ignorance. Cause you would get some people and they would even ask you, like for example, they ask me, they're like, yo bro, but if okay, let's maybe use Universal, not the South African one. Listen, and then they're like, but if Universal come and then they're like, they're signing you, bro. Me, I would sign. And I would tell them, and I always tell them that, guys, company, you become rich late or wealthy late, then you become wealthy now, and then tomorrow now you suffer. Because now you're going to be having all this money. Mara, now you don't have peace. And like, you get me.
But part of the issue is that you don't understand that it's not your money.
Yeah, I wanted to say that. Someone told me that.
That's why you
artists,
need to.
Someone told me that artists are.
That's why.
Dead
That's why I'm talking about. That's why I'm talking about knowledge is power, right? If you understand business, you will understand what an advance actually is. Do you get me?
Yeah.
So me coming as an artist and explaining that thing to someone who's never tried to educate themselves about it, they will brush me off and tell me that I'm cocky. And I understand. Ignorance does that. Trust me, that when I was still not educated, I also thought I knew everything. I also thought I had it under control. I also thought I knew what will happen if, I'm very fortunate that the situations I got myself into, I was able to get out of, because they were very small and I was still very small and nobody knew me. But you need to consider a lot of things, I've even slowed down my career because I felt like I was not mentally stable enough to deal with an onslaught of other people trying to talk to me about my life or trying to say stuff about me, because that's what happens when you are a person in the public eye. I look at people like Naomi Osaka having to deal with their mental issues on camera, and that's not fair. You should be able to retreat to take care of yourself. But anyway, on the record label side, money isn't everything, guys. At the end of the day, you need to remember that. Like, money is a tool. It helps you get stuff and it helps you get places, and it can also be used against you. And I think once you begin to understand that, and once you begin to understand that your talent has, I guess it also has to do with upbringing. Like, my dad raised me pretty much with the idea that if you are passionate enough about what you do, and if you pursue it, then money will be a byproduct of that. Money will be a byproduct of your hard work that you put in. So you could put in work for 5 years and not get money from that work, and then in the 6th year get all your returns from that entire 5 years.
You're speaking God, you right?
You know, Steve Harvey spoke about something like that. It's like the guarantee of giving up is it will never happen. So imagine giving up in the 5th year, not knowing that God has put the 6th year to make you break through.
Yeah, like I think it's a I don't I'm not good at science, so I might get this wrong, but it's the same thing as one of the laws of physics. Basically, what you put in, you get out. You know, every anything that's in motion, you know, will continue to be in motion. Anything that is stationary will continue to be stationary unless an outside force changes that, right? Yeah. So then the whole thing that you need to understand is, as long as you put effort into what you're doing, and as long as your effort is directed, obviously, by knowledge, then you need to understand that you're working towards something and it will get there. I look at all of the people that I look up to, and none of them started their careers knowing everything. None of them started their careers having everything. Guys, Jay-Z released his first album when he was in his late 20s.
Oh my God, just got Jill Scott.
I keep saying that. Look at people like Jill Scott. Look at, look at yourself and find the people who are like you, who are successful, and read their stories. Find out about where they came from and where they are now. Dolly Parton, Dolly Parton comes from an incredibly poor background. You'll think, oh, this is a white lady. Of course, she had everything on her side, but that's not the reality of it. You know, look at all of the great people that we all adulate and that we all love. And you'll understand that those people understood that their talent preceded anything else, you know, and they put in work. Beyonce was not built in one day. Hey. So you need to understand that if this person has been in the industry since she was 15, she has been working on her and honing her talent since she was 6 or 7 or 8.
Exactly.
She's how old now? She's 40 now. So for the past 35 years of her life, this person has been working towards where she is now. That's why she's there.
Exactly.
Work.
Yeah.
Work, don't stop.
It's an
The
overnight
grind,
thing.
don't
They
stop.
think they wake up and it's blink there. That's why I'm like, there's these one-hit wonders. We always see them in the industry. We're like, yes, you. Awesome. Wow. I didn't say hint.
Hey, validate. Sorry. Guys, hey, I love you. Yeah.
But you know, there's hope. I'm looking at the Amapiano guys, and they seem to understand that, and they seem to be empowering themselves a lot with their own talents and their own music and stuff. I don't know enough about them to name drop, but I have noticed that trend, that they understand independence and why it's important, and that's why the music is getting everywhere, essentially.
Speaking of music, what encourages you, or where do you stem your writing, and what inspires your music?
Music inspires my music.
Damn.
Life inspires. It's one of the first foremost things that inspires and informs my music. I consume music, and I see myself in it, essentially. That's why it's so important to honor your own creativity, because you don't know who else you're inspiring by doing that. And I've had a difficult time accepting that as well as a thing, because you kind of end up feeling like you're copying people sometimes, or like you're not original enough or whatever. But I've learned to accept that my way of listening is original enough, and that's good enough for me. So, for example, right now I've been listening to a lot of Doja Cat. And Doja Cat makes me feel so confident. Like, I went and took a dance class because I was like, no ways, guys. Like, what the hell? I just think she's an incredible artist because of that. And now I've realized it made me understand that poetry informs rap, right? So it gives me a better approach to how I write music, because structurally my music is, when I write closer to poetry than I write to like the structure of an actual song. So if I want to turn my poetry into a song, the best way to approach it is to approach it like it is a rap, and then that helps me find a melody, and then that helps me actually build an actual song from what I write. So that's how music informs, or that's how music inspires me, essentially. No, I listen to music. I really listen to music. Like I have soundtracks for every year. And I listen to almost everything. I don't think there's a genre of music that I don't like. I still want to be a rock star. But that just makes me feel ish. You see, I have issues with some parts of me as well, because they make me feel like I'm being too Caucasian. But for real, but I love rock music. That was like my high school thing. Like when I was in high school, I listened to a lot of rock, a lot of indie, a lot of British rock music, like that I still follow to this day. I listened to a lot more hip hop and soul when I was like transitioning from high school to varsity. But yeah, I have soundtracks for almost every year of my life. I categorize music like that, which is why my album is basically split into 4 seasons, because I kind of view music seasonally. That's how I'd group it. And then the seasons themselves are sort of a reflection of my inner state, my emotional state at that time. So things like that will also just like weave their way into how I work and how I write, and things like that. But I usually write from a very emotional perspective. I try my best not to write too personally, because I think sometimes something can be so personal that people struggle to relate to it. I also don't like name dropping and bashing and shit like that in my music. So I'll be quite ambiguous. You know, you could think I'm talking about a relationship with a guy, but I'm talking about a relationship with a friend, or I'm talking about a relationship with a family member, or whatever. So I try to keep it as open as I can, so that even when you're listening to it, you can apply it to a situation that's similar to that, but you don't have to feel like this has to be with a guy, or this has to be with a girl, or whatever. But I'm learning. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to learn new things and new ways to write. Sometimes it's hard to write. Sometimes it's hard to pick up the pen and like face yourself. I even struggle to read my like old diary entries. I think I'm a bit judgmental. Yeah. So
sometimes we are cringe and I'm like,
yeah, and then also social media. I use Pinterest a lot. I'm a bit anxious. Social media makes me a bit anxious, to be honest with you, because there's so much. That's also a part of the anxiety that musicians have, is the idea that they have to be pleasing to everyone and they have to please everyone. So you have to have a body like this. You have to. When I was in high school, flat asses were the shit. I leave high school and lose weight, and then it's the shit to be thick and slim. You know, these things never follow the way that your own life is going. So you might as well just be yourself. But yeah, social media makes me really anxious. So I've had to figure out my own approach to it. For the most part, I spend a lot of time on Pinterest, and I get a lot of writing tips, a lot of songwriting tips. It just also helps me filter through stuff I don't actually want to see, or stuff that makes me anxious, because Pinterest is all about what you like and what you consume. Essentially, you don't have to see other people's lives and stuff like that unless it's related to something that you like. So I use that a lot.
It's what?
Pinterest.
It's like a.
I have it, but I don't know. Like I do have it, like, but I don't use it, man.
no,
You should.
start.
You should,
I
especially
should start
like
trying.
I have like a whole songwriting board on Pinterest where I collect information about songwriting. I collect words, collect techniques. I'll collect stuff about music theory. Yeah, even photography stuff. So that's also one of the other things that I use to work on my writing and my creativity.
Yeah, I think in a mini closing, right? I like to ask this question. I even asked Chuck, what's that one thing that you would love to do, or that goal you'd love to achieve, and if you achieve it, you feel like you fulfilled life, you are done, your purpose in life is done.
God can take you when you are done with it. Like, take me, my fuck.
I'm done.
I'm done it.
Yes.
People get to that point.
Yeah. It's like me, ne?
I don't know. After I achieve
I have
something,
that one.
the next one
poof.
comes. It's
you
like,
can
what
take
else do
me.
I want to do? Because like so many people are like, hey, you like to do a lot of things. It's not just that. I'm anxious. I don't like to sit. So what is it for you?
So
Big thing. It doesn't have to be. That's why I was like that one lifetime goal.
that's the thing, right? I told you before that I'm a very deep person. So this is going to be a bit of a loaded answer. So please bear with me. I don't, because of the journey that I found myself on, I don't really have a boom, pow, this happens in my life is amazing. I have more of an intrinsic goal that's based on who I want to be at the end of my life. And there's this character in one of my favorite books. Her name is Grandma Redbird. She's an old lady, an old Cherokee wise woman. It's like almost like a sangoma of sorts. But she has all these characteristics that I would love to have as an old person. She cares for her grandchildren. She respects the earth. She's a farmer. I love gardening. It's one of my favorite things to do. So things like that are more what I look at in terms of my end goal. You know, I want to live on a farm. I want to have lots of grandchildren. I want to be a cultivator. You know, I want to do crafts. I want to be an artist up until the end of my life. I basically just want to honor all of the things that I've always wanted for myself, and that for me is the big end goal. So if me dying happens halfway through me trying to pursue that, that's fine, because I will have been pursuing it anyway, and that for me is good enough. You know, these big things, right? They never really happen the way you think they'll happen. And they never really... So sometimes you're at risk of feeling a little bit not fulfilled, because your expectations are so great that these things don't surpass your expectations. And even though they're good things and they're amazing things, because they don't surpass your expectations, they don't feel as fulfilling as they are meant to, or that inhibits you from being able to see how fulfilling they are. So, you know, I could say, you know, the greatest thing would be for me to meet and be mentored by Beyonce, but I could experience that. And because I don't know Beyonce, she may turn out to not be what I expect her to be. And she has every right to not be what I expect her to be. However, I may not experience that in a fulfilling manner if I focus too much on it, you know? So I'd love for something like that to happen. Don't get me wrong, I would probably cry. But I'm trying to make it not my focus in life, that it's a great thing if it happens. However, that's not what I'm looking at. You know, I'm yeah, I want to be happy, guys. I just want to be happy. I just want to be an old happy lady with her grandchildren and her crafts and her art and everything.
Yeah, and waking up and you don't hear the hustle and bustle of the city.
Yeah, man. It's been before Bunda signs us out. This has been I've never had such a calm podcast session.
Like, yo, guys.
What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say?
Don't take it personal. Don't take it out. Now you're erupting the magma now to become a lava.
It was calm,
First of all, did you see your facial expression when you looked at me? Yeah, calm. We saw that. Your slight jabs.
Yo, guys.
Subscribe, like, pagaza yonkinto.
Yo, guys. Yeah, don't mangal when I'm quiet. Me, I'm learning. I tell you every time I learn, me. Like, even with Chuck Nuga, I was learning, I was quiet. I can't pop in this ish, yo. Because I'm deep in the ish.
We must have one where I interview you.
Yeah, right? Right?
Plus, I've worked with you, so
Nah,
I know which questions to ask.
You don't want to cook the issues. You're not cook the issues, but yo, guys, be educated, yo.
Where do we get her? Where do we
The
get
issues.
her? Where do we see?
You're gonna see here. You get your here. Get yo, sorry. Do the issue.
So I did say that I'm still rebranding.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I think the first few posts that I make that are related to my music will be on my Instagram page, but please bear with me. At the moment it's a bit empty, but by the time this show is, I will have something on my Instagram page for you, and hopefully by that time my website will be up and running as well, so all my information will be on your marketing stuff. You'll have it by then. Let's just do that rather.
Thank you so much, guys. We love you. We are
Witness the
signing
great
out.
ish of N McBunda ish. Witness the great ish of N McBunda ish.